Well, hello, everybody. I'm here with Patrick Lancaster, and thank you for joining the program today. Patrick, say hello.
Hello, everybody. How are you?
Maybe explain what the show is a little bit tonight, and we'll go from there.
Well, today we've got again, a very special guest. One thing I happened to notice being in Armenia and being in Artsakh, Nagorno-Karabakh during the war and after was how so many Armenian diaspora came back to Armenia and Artsakh to help the people, help during the war, whether it was to be a soldier or to help with humanitarian aid. So many people came back. And today, our special guest is a person, a very well-educated man who's working on his second master's degree. And he came specifically back to Armenia and particularly Artsakh to help the war relief and during the war and in the aftermath. And soon he's going to be joining us. He's actually in Artsakh right now. And as you can imagine, there can be somewhat of problems with the connectivity and things like this. But we're going to make sure to have a great show today.
Okay, so everybody, just so you know, Patrick is a self-funded independent journalist. He's crowdfunded. As you can see in the details below there, in the description there, you might want to check my channel out. Patrick, you might want to update that. Put my link in there for the channel so the viewers can check out my channel. My name's Alex. I'm from Reporterfy Media. I cover a lot of things in Asia here, mostly China for the moment. I'm good friends with Patrick. I met him a few years ago, and we've gone to some interesting places around the world together. Now, if you're following today's program, you notice on the chat, on the side chat, the live side chat, if you're using Google Chrome, you could just right click with your mouse and say translate to whatever language you want. So you'll be able to follow along here. Maybe tell us a little bit more about our guest tonight, Patrick, if you could.
Well, we actually first met in Stepanakert while I was covering the aftermath of the war. We didn't actually meet during the war, but I think he can tell us a lot about his actions, his humanitarian work, and how he has helped the people there, and what the rest of the Armenians around the world can do to also help the victims of this horrible war.
I just want to also let our viewers know to keep it polite in the side column there. I will be moderating as best as I can, but I can't watch everyone. Keep it polite. We are here to answer your questions. And in the second half of the show, we'll have a call-in part of the program. That means that we'll put a link out in the description box where you can come on to the show and ask questions. Once again, let's keep it polite. We have our guest here. And without further ado, I will bring him into the show. And Patrick, you can do the introductions and everything. Okay, here we are.
Hello, how are you?
Good to see you again, Patrick.
Yeah, it's great to see you. How's everything going there today?
Well, the city is active, as you saw when you were here in Stepanakert. You know, everyone's focused on action, on doing whatever is necessary to keep stability, keep people here, keep the military situation in good spirits and you know, focused mindset.
Can you maybe tell the viewers a little bit more about yourself and what you've been doing?
And Patrick, just before we forget, if possible, someone can put a headset in there. We've got a little bit of reverb back. Or if you're following the show in the YouTube window, if you could mute that, because I hear an echo. Do you hear an echo, Patrick?
Yeah, I think do you maybe have some earbuds or no?
Yeah, if you just give me a moment, I'll...
Take your time. We'll let you look. We'll take you out of the set for a minute.
No problem.
Very good.
Take your time. All right, so we're just going to get these sound issues sorted out. No problem. We had it last time, but hey, we dealt with it. Just want to say, let's have a look at some of the people that have dialed into the show here. Patrick, do you know any of these names? Ash is back. I think Ash, you were here last week. Thank you for joining.
Oh, hey, Ash.
Great White Buffalo, thank you for coming by tonight, as well as a few more people. We can read your chats. We will highlight some of the ones as they come up. We have people coming in from Facebook as well. And where else are we streaming this on, Patrick? We're streaming it.
Actually, we are today streaming on YouTube, of course, and also we are streaming on Facebook Live, and special first, we are streaming live on hyper.com, which is a really up and coming social media platform. That's the link's down in the description if you want to check it out. But I think they've got some interesting things coming.
Okay, so as our guest gets the acoustic set up, no problem. We'll give him a couple of minutes for that. Just wanted to say quite a week here, or quite a weekend here on social media. We are lucky that we can still actually broadcast this. Surprise, surprise. Really, I am quite surprised after talking to Patrick over the weekend that we are able to actually broadcast the show on YouTube. As you know, some of the voices here are getting crushed on YouTube. It's getting more difficult for us, and that's why we do appreciate your support. And Patrick does appreciate your support as well.
Definitely.
And when you can, I will pop out a link to my channel as well.
I believe you've got a link just in the middle of the description down there.
Much love. Thank you very much for
Yeah,
that.
no problem.
Greatly appreciate it. Okay, let's bring our guest back on here and let's see how if we can get the acoustics going well. And I'm sure everybody's ready to ask a lot of questions. Here we go. How's that sound?
You tell me. How's it sound?
Well,
yeah,
great.
Much better. Much better.
Very good.
All right, so Patrick, I'm going to let you lead the way here and on the questions. And as we get deeper into the program, our last guest from last show had quite a bit to handle as well. So we'll get at it. All right, here we go, Patrick. I'll hand it over to you.
Okay, so like I said, maybe you can tell the people a little bit more about your actions and what's really going on as far as you being an Armenian, being in the aftermath of the war. I mean, me being kind of an outsider, I can only say so many things. So we want to really kind of pick your brain today and see what you could tell us about what has been going on and what is going on now.
Sure, I'll do my best. So I'll just give a bit of my background. I grew up in Los Angeles, in the broad, large Armenian community there. Attended private Armenian school my whole life and was involved in community organizations. And so when the war broke out, a lot of us out there were looking for every which way to contribute, both with the info war that was going on Twitter and other social media platforms, as well as all sorts of supply and monetary contributions, assistance. You know, I don't know how much you all followed on that end, what was going on all around the world, but people were everyone felt the need to be as involved as possible. There were also demonstrations being organized, both formally through organizational channels and very often informally. People would, just call as many people as they could, and roads were blocked and all sorts of things to just try and get attention. And so in some cases those were successful as well. But obviously there was a much bigger, there were much greater forces at play during the course of this war. I purchased my ticket to come out here when the war was still going on, and by the time I got out here, the papers had been signed, and so a group of us, a bunch of people that I know and a bunch of people that I've met have all been trying to uh, get involved on various levels, including both internally with the kind of state of the country politically, as well as aiding families, the wounded, the current servicemen, and simply displaced families. So that's the sort of thing that I've kind of been involved in.
Just kind of like an overall helping in any way you can, whether humanitarian or. Can you elaborate a bit on maybe the governmental aspect of it, or?
Sure, just a little bit. So there's a group that's been formed called the Movement for the Salvation of the Homeland. In Armenian, Հայրենիքի Փրկության Շարժում, and it's led by the major political parties, the Armenian Revolutionary Federation, the Republican Party, the Prosperous Armenia Party, and a group of others, and they have chosen Vaskar Manukyan as a former prime minister, defense minister, someone who has been perceived as genuine statesman, genuine political actor, and they've chosen him as a interim prime minister with the proposition that Nikol Pashinyan should resign and that Vaskar Manukyan be appointed until such time as the kind of crisis that we're in and the negotiations can be handled and snap elections can be organized. And so a lot of it is just getting information out there, because many people have been kind of told this narrative for years and years through various media sources in Armenia that have been largely foreign funded to attack the character of the second and third president, Robert Kocharian and Serge Sarkisian, as well as the parties that I mentioned, as well as many other statesmen, military figures, etc. And so there's so much discontent and kind of hatred sown against these people. And so Pashinyan put himself forward as primarily not those guys, right? The main chant of the demonstrations that brought him to power were reject Serge. And really that's been kind of his motto throughout these 2.5 years where he's been in power, to end Serge's reign, to end whatever remnants of influence that he might have. And so that's been the idea that he's been pushing. And because of his work in media, as well as other people who have pushed that kind of narrative, there's a lot of work that a group of us are trying to do to bring the truth to light and to help people realize that the situation hasn't been so black and white. That really, there a lot of what people believe has not been substantiated. It's just been thrown out there, repeated enough times that people take it as gospel now. Namely, that these people have been leeching off them. They're the reason for all their woes, and essentially that there's now no one who can come forward who is not Pashinyan or essentially approved by him, who can be acceptable to the people. Anyone else may be associated with these boogeymen of the past, right? There's a kind of rhetoric of the formers, Naftineta, and in his career, Pashinyan kind of pushed forward this idea of black and white, that they're the good guys and the bad guys, clearly implying that he's the good guy, and the former folks are demonized and vilified.
So if I can, so basically this is something I've kind of heard from the people in Yerevan and Artsakh, for that matter. You're kind of saying that Pashinyan, a lot of the people aren't for him, but they don't trust anyone else just yet to step in his place. They kind of think that he's not good right now, but who can replace him? Am I following you correctly?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And it's an absurd notion that that really anyone else wouldn't do a better job right now, given the number of failures that we've seen from this government in any non-absurd reality. A nation's leader would step down after such a catastrophe, would accept that they've made some mistakes, and let other people take the reign. And it was a hard enough blow to see what happened on November 10th, when even up until the last moments, there were lies being told the last few days that no, Shushi is held, Shushi, things are fine, they've come in, but we've moved them back out, things like that. And then to be slapped in the face with the reality that, as one general put it, in most war situations, you put out 30% lies, but in this situation, it was 44 plus days of 100% lies, and that kind of deception was just a giant slap in the face. But after that, what was on people's minds was, how are we going to pick up the pieces? Okay, Pashinyan, let's say he's gone tomorrow. Now we all have to rally together and deal with this new reality and work on rebuilding and et cetera, et cetera. But instead, we have since then dealt with the bitterness of someone who still thinks he's, uh, I don't know, God's gift to the Armenians, and uh, there are also a small but loud group of people that still throw vitriol and hate at anyone who says the simple fact that this person needs to step down and sensible people need to come to get things back in order. And a number
Well,
of his My Step coalition members have been resigning. Ministers have resigned, and all major Armenian organizations globally have kind of called for his resignation. The two Catholicoi the heads of the Armenian Church have called for his resignation, and it seems any of these people that do so, sensible people are upset and just accepting of these statements and don't really make noise around it. But those who are unconditional supporters of Pashinyan will attack any one of these people. No one is allowed to criticize or go against him as far as they're concerned.
Well, one thing I've kind of thought about, and I've talked about with some people, locals, and for that matter, not. But I want to kind of get your opinion on it. So many people are against Nikol Pashinyan, mainly, not only because, but mainly because of the trilateral agreement, him signing the agreement that gave away the vast majority of Artsakh to Azerbaijan. Now, with the speed that Armenia and Artsakh was losing territory before the 9th of November, what do you think the end result would have been if Pashinyan hadn't signed that agreement, giving away all that territory?
There are many points that we would have to bring to the table to do those kinds of speculations. There are many factors that were at play. So, for example, someone was bringing up the point: what if the leadership in Artsakh was different? How would that play out differently? Or what if we were less organized in terms of having not one central command, because that was one of the conditions of victory in the 90s, it seems, or that's one position anyway, that you had so many leaders that kind of just stepped forward and were brought up to leadership positions, and it was decentralized until a certain point that full central command was established in the liberation war in the 90s. What if that was the condition? Okay, but in that case, if you still had lack of support, as it seems, a lot of the details that have been coming out, it seems like you had a certain lack of support during the course of the war from Armenia, then things would have once again played out. It would have been a bitter end. But the question shouldn't start there. We can go several steps back and look at the decisions that Pashinyan made over the course of the 2 years, the way he, the wonderful job he did with diplomacy with Russia and thinking he could, I don't know, give a slap to the face of the Russians, and that's just going to be good. You have your number one ally, and all of a sudden you're telling them that, no, I don't need to show respect or friendship towards you. The people that you consider important, I'm going to pull them out.
One of the instances I think you're alluding to is where I believe Pashinyan didn't shake Putin's hand when it was traditional to shake his hand, or like this, correct?
Well, I was also primarily referring to when Putin came to Armenia and Pashinyan did not go to greet him.
Gotcha.
I mean, gentlemen, we use the term leadership pretty lightly, I think, in 2020. If I'm going to go back and I'm going to look at history, there are leaders of countries and presidents of countries that have had their ass absolutely kicked. And even when they've had their ass kicked, they've got up the next morning and they've said, we'll do whatever we can to help our people through it. Is the leader of Armenia, is he showing that to his people? Some of them feel betrayed. Some of them feel humiliated. Some of them say, yeah, that was the right thing to do. But after that happened, has he been visible to his people? And has he shown leadership through it by saying, yeah, maybe we didn't go about this the right way, maybe we should forge forward? Or has he vanished? That's a question I've got for both of you guys.
That's precisely what he's done, is that he's vanished. He's nowhere to be seen. He knows he can't come out in public because the majority bear rage, if not hatred, towards him. That most people consider him to be a straight up traitor. And
okay,
he did not even go to Christmas Mass on January 6th, which is Armenian Orthodox day for Christmas. Did not show up to Mass because imagine him trying to step in church and people standing in his way, saying, I would imagine that sort of thing would happen. Or
well, I think that happened at the end of December as well, didn't it? I believe the priest refused to shake his hand, and him and his followers had some altercations outside the church.
The priest sort of invited him out of the church.
Well, can we say that his days are numbered?
They most certainly are, but it's a question of how and how soon, because most of us did not imagine that this would go on for 2 months, and it's been a continuous heartbreak and bitterness every time we see both the decisions that are kind of secretly playing out, and then the lies that are brought out to cover them up. So for example, with the delineation of the borders, there are towns, there are homes that are Armenian. They've been Armenian for ages. And throughout the Soviet Union, it was largely irrelevant whether this little inch was Armenia or Azerbaijan. And prior to the Soviet Union, it was the Russian Empire, and then the two independent states were formed. And so for the head of state to not negotiate and push for these lands remaining Armenian, to not take both a strong position on this matter, and then to go and lie to the people about it, or describe it in vague terms, because if he says it very upfront, people will be up in arms. But if he does what politicians often do when they want to mask the truth, explain it in a very long-winded tone, and say things like, maybe throw in there, yes, there will be tough pills to swallow, to say vague things like that. People understand, and whoever doesn't want to hear it will, choose to understand that however they want. But people are leaving their homes. Azerbaijani soldiers are coming into Armenian territory and saying, "This is Azerbaijan." You can
and you're referring kind of down towards the Goris Kapan kind of strip there around Varatan, yeah. I was actually down there at the end of December, right before the New Year's, and it's definitely a very strange kind of situation, because, like you said, back in the Soviet times, there was the road. I mean, we were driving through it and looking on the map, and you can just see on the official Azerbaijan-Armenian border that this road, the only road that goes through there, just zigzags back and forth. And we go through, and on one side, we see the Azerbaijan flag, and it was really, we went quite a bit through there. It's very kind of confusing at times what country we were in, and it was very interesting, and it's horrible to see that these people are having to again leave their homes just because they happen to be on that 4-kilometer bit of the road that lands in what's now controlled by Azerbaijan.
Patrick, I'm just going to dial in the show here a little bit. Just watching, as you guys see, I'm not always facing the camera like I am now. That's because I'm reading the comments and trying to highlight some. I'm going to say this one more time to the people that are in the chat. Healthy, balanced chat if you can, guys. If it gets very personal, racist, or even vulgar words, I'm going to try to moderate the best I can. If not, I will bring in additional moderators, and you'll be out. So I'm going to add something to this conversation, guys, and I think it's quite interesting. And I don't think you guys are aware of this. You're talking about situations that have pretty much happened in other parts of the world. And I would say Ukraine is a very good example, Patrick. You would say, well, okay, the Armenians are very upset that people are moving into these territories. They're taking homes away. Let's see what the leader of Armenia does. Look what they did in Crimea. They said, forget it. We're not waiting around. Let's go to a referendum. Forget it. We want to be part of Russia. What can you do when the will of the people guide the country, when it's leaderless? It has no leader at all in that country. The people are going to rise up, and they might say, you know what? Fine. If they're not going to listen to our will, listen to our might, we don't want to fight about it, but we're willing to. But then again, maybe they can call it. Is that possible to call a referendum in that part?
Well, I mean, actually, this we can, as far as the referendum goes, we can go all the way back to, I believe it was 1988, if I'm not mistaken, correct? When the referendum happened in Artsakh, correct? Yeah, and well, maybe you can probably tell the people a little bit more about that history than I can. You want to give a couple words on that?
Just briefly, something like I want to say around 95%, not more, came out in support of the independence referendum in '88. It was held in Artsakh, and it was rejected by Moscow, and it was responded to by Azerbaijan with violence, both in this area of Nagorno-Karabakh, Artsakh, as well as in Baku and nearby Sumgait, nearby to Baku, where the citizenry, the people just went out and started killing their Armenian neighbors in those areas, and police largely just turned a blind eye to it. I think there were hundreds of people involved, if not thousands, and I believe there were less than 10 who were arrested, and in both cases there were hundreds of people that were just massacred in their homes, in the streets. They're horrifying stories in those cases. And then
these were Armenians massacred by Azerbaijanis
in Baku and Sumgait, yes. And other towns, other areas in Azerbaijan as well. But the movement continued on like a legal basis, on a civil disobedience and peaceful demonstration basis, initially here in Stepanakert, for example, and throughout Artsakh. and when attempts at establishing that independence peacefully did not pan out, and people were arrested and killed, that's when it erupted into self-defense movement, and people organizing just simply in the villages, organizing self-defense. At that time, the Armenians had little to no guns, and I mean, you know, if people don't know the story of the Liberation War, I mean, obviously it's a story too long for to tell right now, but there's plenty of material available.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people around the world, and you know, and actually including myself, before this war broke out, I didn't really understand a lot about the situation between Azerbaijan and Armenia myself, and as I went there, I learned more from the people, because I saw it from the people that were living in Artsakh under the shelling, and I saw from the outskirts of Artsakh, you know, as you can see in research that the outer skirts parts of Artsakh before the 90s were mainly Azerbaijani, and during the war, those turned over as part of the buffer zone. And at that point, those people had to leave their homes. I mean, this is kind of correct, yes?
Correct, and there's been an ongoing debate regarding this. Whether in Armenian society, there's been a debate around this, and there have been people who have suggested that it would be safer for everyone if those territories were simply relinquished. But the argument on the other side has been that this is a security buffer zone that Armenians need. Azerbaijan is quite a large country in comparison to Armenia and Artsakh combined. And this has always been perceived as a buffer zone against a very rhetorically and otherwise violent state that has made claims on not only Artsakh but also the region of Sevan Lake, of Yerevan itself, and Syunik, of course. I mean, if you're at that point, you're talking about the majority of the country. What remains in Armenia at that point?
I mean, quick question, guys. I mean, how many people do we feel are displaced right now in this area?
Well, I guess it kind of depends on how far we go back, really.
Well, let's just say the 6 months.
You've been more involved in the relief situation. Maybe you kind of have a better idea than me.
I can speak to my estimates of the current situation. So about 100,000 were displaced during the war, and I want to say it's not clear. One thing that I've heard from several sources that about 90,000 have a total of 90,000 are living in the region now on the Armenian side. I can't speak to previous Azerbaijani displacement, but obviously there wasn't. This was just a war of aggression on part of Azerbaijan. There was no displacement on their
So with the people that are joining us now, maybe you can tell us where you are and what you're kind of doing. What would you do on a day-to-day basis, and what's your goals in the next short term?
Sure. Well, my goals and my activities are various, so I can speak to a few of those. I'm primarily an educator, but at the time being, I've just been throwing myself into different projects that I see. So, just to mention a few that that I haven't been involved with, but that I commend, and then a few that I have been involved with. There's organizations like, or I guess an initiative called LA to Artsakh.
Are these NGOs?
That one is not an NGO currently. It's kind of a group of people that have just taken on initiative. And then organization-wise, there's the Armenian Relief Society, which I highly recommend that people support, because they are very organized and have been well established in the country for a long time, have been around for over a century. And they are currently helping displaced families that are in Armenia, that have left Hadrut, Shushi, etc., as well as wounded soldiers that are in need of surgeries or what's the word?
Rehabilitation.
Rehabilitation or medical equipment, prosthetics, so on. And then another one is the Armenian Youth Federations With Our Soldiers initiative. Again, I would direct people to that. And so my work with the Armenian Relief Society has just been really to collect information, to go along with them and distribute aid. A lot of it for me is to better understand, so that I can better communicate with the diaspora, because there are Armenian communities all around the world that are connected to the Armenian Relief Society, and then there are many others who are not aware of this organization that's done a lot of work over the years. And then with our soldiers, my responsibility is to find more of these wounded soldiers, because the Ministry of Health does not always share information. Will sometimes say that they're taking care of everything, and we get different reports from the soldiers themselves. And by and large, what we know is that in a lot of cases, they have their initial visit or surgery taken care of, and then after that, they may still have needs that are not always 100% covered. And so the work has just been to, either through word of mouth or through other organizational contacts, to kind of find these people that need assistance.
Nice.
And what I've been doing here in Artsakh, again, I've linked up. When I met you, Patrick, I had linked up with an organization called Tufenkan Foundation that has in the past built a lot of homes and schools and all, primarily Artsakh. And they were just providing material aid, food and other essentials. And so myself and my friends had rented a SUV, and so we were kind of just helping with that distribution. It's kind of a different project every time. But in the future, I look more to contributing through educational initiatives.
The reason why I made that comment about NGOs, I just want to kind of revert back to when we first started this conversation. You were saying that some of the information is hard to verify on both sides, and some of it has an agenda. I spent the better part of this weekend putting a lot of time and energy after last show that we had with Patrick into really dissecting NGOs. And I was quite startled by the number that were based or funded out of the United States. And anybody on this panel have a guess on how many NGOs they think that there's active in the United States at this time?
Can't even put a number on it, but quite a lot.
This is in general, NGOs in general?
Well, I'll just read it to you here. It's quite alarming. I mean, I'll just pull it up. Staggering, the number. But of the tune of about 1.5 million. That's not people, that's organizations. And that just shows you the influence that some of these NGOs have. And I don't think all of them are good intentions. And I think that we find ourselves trying to stand up or trying to find leaders to stand up for rights, beliefs, passions, and dreams. And when you see these organizations funded, we got to remember, money funded behind these organizations, they can be pulling nations apart that actually would like to mend things together. And if you really look at a lot of the papers that have come out, over the years on certain nations, some countries can handle it. Some countries can handle it, some can't. And it depends on what the narrative is, or who's in power, or what nations are in power, or how much money is being funded. Let's just look at the last budget that was passed in the United States of America, on how much of that budget wasn't for the American people, and how much of it was towards other nations. Was it put there to save lives, or was it put there to make work for people, give jobs to people that are already in power, to sway a certain narrative on certain parts of the world? And my interest here is to find out what brought this to such a fireball in such quick time, and what NGOs were in the area. And guys, the way you find out about it is you start finding out who did all the hit pieces 3 or 4 months before the action happened. And then when it's over, they'll do the pieces again, and you'll put the puzzle together on where the narrative was set. And it's amazing the power of media, what it has over people, and how it can pull people back and forth. And sometimes politicians can be completely, they can't do anything about it. I mean, thoughts on that? Am I too deep, or?
Well, I definitely think it kind of alludes to how important independent media is, like yourself and like we are, because I mean, you're not controlled by the mainstream media. I'm not controlled by the mainstream media, and they try to shut us down, as well as many other independent journalists, just as they try to Trump. I mean, just after I got to Artsakh during the war, my Twitter was banned for 2 months with no explanation. And just one day after appealing it, sending email after email, day after day, after 2 months of being shut down, my Twitter just magically came back to life. And I know many stations and YouTube channels that have been banned, and I believe you've had some on the China situation lately, correct?
Absolutely. Last week, this whole week, my Telegram, sorry, I'm on Telegram now, far away from WhatsApp. has been just inundated by actually not just China, people in Asia, people in other countries here, that they've just been absolutely carpeted, demonetized for the most bizarre reasons. And, this is interesting. They feel that, demonetizing channels like yours and stuff is just going to stop us from talking. Not happening. I mean, take me off the platform. Still not happening. I will walk out front of my front door and I will still talk, or I will still talk in the local pub or whatever it is in town. I'm still going to yap. And hey, maybe there's 50 guys in the bar or 50 girls or whatever. We're going to talk about it. And that is communication. The worst thing that could have happened this week happened. I cannot believe it happened. But an absolute assault on actually freedom of speech. Doesn't matter if you're on the right, or left, or center, or independent, or whatever. Big tech steamrolled that today or yesterday in the last couple of days. I've just been walking around like I lost my best friend. I just said, what happened here? And I was quite surprised when you said, Patrick, let's do a show this week. I was absolutely shocked we were allowed online to do it. To be honest with you.
Yeah, I
really.
mean, these companies are just really trying to control the information flow around the world. I mean, you talk about the demonetization. I mean, it's already for independent journalists who really dive deep. It's really kind of a joke is on YouTube. I mean, I haven't been really monetized for years. I mean, as far as my work in Artsakh goes, my reports have been seen by over 7 million people around the world just on the war. And that's more than any other journalist in the mainstream media's reports because I stayed there longer than any of them. But for that 7 million, I received $7 from YouTube.
Yeah, and it's also shadow banning is what they do. Is they'll go in there and they will not recommend your videos, not recommend your videos after other sites, even if you got a decent subscriber base. I've seen 8 channels of friends of mine go from 50 to 75,000 views per video to 2,000. And they've worked years on building their audiences, and they've done nothing crazy. They're not out there saying do this, do that, or anything. You're just telling their story or telling their side of it. And it really bothers me because if we lose that, then how are we ever going to get to the bottom of a lot of these problems in the world here? And who do we trust at this point? I mean, I'm going to ask the viewers, is there a credible news agency out there that anyone trusts? So guys, let's continue to go over the chat, and I'm going to we're almost at the 1 hour mark. I'm going to open up the lines here if you're cool to take some questions, guys, because I don't know how this could go. Our last time we did this, everything went great. Nobody freaked out. So we were good, but I'm going to put a link into the chat, onto the side chat. And don't forget, guys, to support Patrick's channel as well. Just look at that little description box below there, and he'll tell you how to support him as well. And if you have any questions for the panel, I'll put the link into the side chat box. And that means you can come onto the show, and you don't have to show your face or anything like that. You can be upset with us, or you can agree with us. It's no problem. It's a very happy, safe space here. So the other thing is that the reason why we just need to see what you look like first is to make sure that you're old enough to be on the program today. Okay, so guys, carry on. I'm just going to organize that, and I'll see you guys back in a second.
All right, great. And basically, we talked a little before, but how long do you planned on staying in Armenia and Artsakh?
So prior to the war, I had the intention of immediately starting my PhD, applying for PhD and beginning that process. But now I see that the education that I've had so far and the experience that I've had is sufficient for the time being for me to get to produce rather than to intake more information. Of course, doctoral program is productive as well, but in terms of your producing writing. But I feel like it's time for me to contribute here, and so I think I'll be staying here for the foreseeable future.
Nice.
Yeah, and then I'm sure I'll be back and forth between Yerevan and Stepanakert.
Kind of. I myself will be like that for the next few months as well. We're actually, right now, as you can see behind me, I was able to come back to Rostov to be with my family for the new year, and I actually thought I was going to be already back in Yerevan, but as far as the family goes, extended a little bit here. But I believe next week I'm going to be headed back to Yerevan, so I'm sure we'll see each other there.
Very good. I look forward to that. Yeah, I wasn't sure when exactly we were going to be back, but
yeah. Yeah, it's going to be good, and I think we've been trying back and forth, but things with the documents and visas are a little bit we're a little bit sketchy. But now it seems that at the beginning of February, it looks like we're going to be able to bring my family there as well. So it's going to be pretty nice. I'm going to be able to be there with my family, report on the political situation and the protests and whatnot in Yerevan, and head down to Artsakh every week or so and report on the aftermath there. So I'm sure we'll be seeing each other quite a bit.
Grand. Good. I hope I was helpful in the future as well. We can speak more specifically on whatever particular topics we may want to focus in on.
Yeah, well, I think, now we're going to get some questions from the people and figure out what they want to hear from us. And I think this so far the show's going great, and we're getting a lot of information out to the people. I hope the people that can hear us in the chat are thinking the same way. So
it went
well. Yeah, we had some people. Yeah, guys, Ash, Jason, whoever you guys, click on that link. Come on to the show. Let's get this show rocking and rolling here. I know you guys are dying to ask some questions or even make your voice heard. So just click that link. Very simple. I put it into the chat box, and then I will bring you on to the panel, and we can start it from there. Okay, guys? So I'll be waiting for you guys.
So it went well with the hike last week. I didn't get a chance to watch the entire show.
I mean, we had it really went great and long, and everybody seemed to enjoy it, and I think we've got a lot of return people now, as I can see from chat, and I lasted about 3 hours. I wasn't actually able to make it the whole time because of my family and everything here, but so I think it went great, and I think this time is going great as well. And I'm sure we're going to be able to do this a lot more. It's been a really great start here. Hey, Alex, you around?
Absolutely, I'm around. I'm just running the back end there, Patrick. So listen, we're going to wait till we get some people there. Go ahead.
Actually, I think I can maybe introduce one guy that can come on and have a chat with us.
Go get him. Go get him.
All righty. And you've got the link out in the chat box, yeah?
Yeah, the link's out in the chat box. We might have a couple of, we have a few armchair critics, but some of them don't want to come on the show, but that's okay. It's no problem. We're open to that. I was trying to get that guy earlier, Gabriel, to come on there. He was pretty vocal about his opinion. I told him that he'd like to come in. Somebody just came into the backstage.
Yes, that's.
Want to bring him on?
Basically, this is a man who I've been having some actually good conversations with throughout the war and after. One of the only people living on the Azerbaijan side, actually in Baku, who I've been able to have a real kind of civil conversation with. So it's great to see information on both sides of this, and people interjecting on both sides, not just one side of a conflict, because there's two sides to every story, and I showed the side from the side of the Armenian Artsakh side. So it's nice to see a little bit of a taste of what life is like on the other side. So if you can bring Cam on, that'd be great.
Let me get this straight, Patrick. Who are you bringing on to the show?
Well, right now we're bringing on a person from Baku, and he's a very, as far as I've talked to him, very respectful person, and we want to hear his kind of take on the situation. And I believe he has a couple of questions for us.
Just to let you guys know, you don't need a camera for the show. In fact, even if you want to come in the backstage, we also have a private chat in there that you can type your question out. It's totally fine. You can talk. We're not asking anybody. Nobody as beautiful as you, Patricia. That's what they call you, Patrick. So don't be shy. Just come into the back end there. We'll get you guys on the show, and we'll rock and roll. Patrick, this is interesting that you want to bring this next guest on. This could get a little bit interesting, huh? All right. So without further ado, I'm going to bring on Patrick's next guest here on the show. And Patrick, you can do the introduction. And everybody, please keep it civil. Okay? Here we go.
Good evening, everyone.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. How about you?
Not bad. It's interesting to finally see you somewhat in person.
Yeah, well, I haven't really talked in English for a long time, so excuse my accent, and I'm a little bit nervous at the moment.
No problem. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I was born in Baku, and I was born in 1998, so I'm 24 years old. I have graduated from Azerbaijan Technical University, Computer Engineering. And I know that's all I can tell as far as I can tell, If you want to ask a question, I can respond. So.
I'm sure we got lots of questions for you tonight.
Yeah. Well, I'm not an expert.
No problem.
I'm not a historian.
We appreciate you coming on to the show. That's for sure. My first question is, I'm going to get the ball rolling here. What the hell? Why not? Huh, guys? You okay with that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sure.
You all right with that?
Sure.
Has anybody of your immediate family, or let's say cousins or aunts or uncles, been affected by this latest war directly?
My brother is a professional soldier. He was serving on border guard, and they actually called my cousin to serve second time in the army.
Okay, the question was, has anybody been affected in regards to hurt, injured in the line of duty, shot? Have you lost any family members?
No.
That's my question. Go ahead.
Many friends.
What?
I'm asking the same question to the other person on the panel, and he's saying many friends.
Yeah, many friends and colleagues, and actually, I was a teacher in Lori province in the north of Armenia, and one of my students who was serving his military service was in the midst of the war, and he is MIA, presumed to be KIA or captive.
Does it go to me? Sorry, I had to jump out there for a second. I almost lost my battery. I had to put up the charger.
I got it ready.
So,
if you don't,
your mic's starting to cut out there a bit.
Is that better?
Oh, perfect.
Okay.
So my turn, yeah?
Go.
Okay, sorry. So, yeah, unfortunately, I as well know someone that was affected. Actually, a person that that helped a lot of the journalists in Stepanakert, because that's where all the journalists were kind of based during during the war, that was, I guess, the safest place. And then during the day, people would go out to different parts that were hit by attacks from the Azerbaijan side. And this man who helped a lot of the journalists and did a lot of humanitarian stuff as well, he was in the last couple of days of the war on his way to Shushi, and he was from what I understand, took a wrong turn or something like that, and he lost his life. His parents called his cell phone, and Azerbaijan soldiers answered and said, "We killed your son." And that was I knew him several times and met him several times at Stepanakert. He helped a lot of people.
So, how do I pronounce your name? It's Ayk. How do I pronounce
it's
that?
Ayhan.
Aykan?
Ayhan.
Ayhan?
Like Khan, like Chinggis Khan. I don't know, Genghis Khan. Like
Khan. Okay.
Khan.
All right. So anyway, let's get to it. My question for you is, seeing something like this at your age, you're 24, right? You're 24 years old. Do you have friends in Armenia your age that you know?
There are certain people that I talk to, like Armenian people on the internet. Like there was one guy named Tigran, and he could speak Azerbaijani very good. He learned from internet, and there were actually a few Armenians who lived here and stayed. Like, for example, there was a girl named Nijar. Her dad was full Armenian, but her mom was Azeri. I knew her, and there was an Armenian woman who worked at our school. She later changed her name and even her religion, and even have visited a pilgrimage in Iran called Mashhad. So there was one instance where children say, like, we should hurt this woman because she's cruel to children, and she's cruel to students, and she's Armenian. And there was another man called who saw this conversation and come to them and said, this woman can be Armenian, but she is Muslim and has visited. She has even visited a pilgrimage in Iran, so you can't hurt her. Excuse my accent, by the way, because I'm not really.
You're doing well. You're doing very well.
Speak English. So yeah, I know a few Armenian people, and I'm not really hostile to them unless they are hostile to me. So I don't really hate people based on their ethnicity or religion or whatever. For me, it's.
And I'm going to continue to interrupt you because I find this fascinating that I get to talk to you about this. But when you say the term, you just said something about hurting people. Like you don't. Can you repeat what you just said? Something about.
Like there was one instance. I
understand the story. I understand the story of what you're saying, but you're saying that you won't be hostile to people unless they're hostile to you.
Yeah.
Okay, what do you mean by that?
What do you mean? Like, my stance is self-defense. Like, for example, if you hate me just because I'm Azerbaijani or just because my background, why shouldn't I hate you also? I mean,
okay, I'll just give you an example. When I was born in Canada, and many moons ago. Okay, trust me, way before your time. I was born in a generation that, our grandfathers fought in the Second World War. And even though I hadn't been to certain parts of the world, I had this pent up, a little bit of hostility because certain family members of mine were, killed in the war. And what I'm trying to get at is, if this hasn't affected you or your friends directly by being, either shot or injured in the line of duty, or you've lost a loved someone, how can you know the pain of the Armenians, is what I'm trying to say. How can you, as a 24-year-old, know that unless you haven't experienced or had friends that have gone through that? And
Yeah,
trust me, I have no dog in the fight here. Okay, trust me. This is not my expertise. I'm just the host here, but that's my curiosity. Is when I'm talking to a guy like you, you're a smart guy, young guy. I'm very curious that if you have no one that has been affected, family, friends, aunts, uncles, cousins, or whatever, how can you know what the other people are feeling?
So what I get from this conversation is that you want to justify certain individuals' hate towards me just because of my background. You say, for example, a certain Armenians guy's family killed in the war, so it's okay for them to hate me. Is that right?
No, nope. I'm going to try to back up my point here a little bit more here. All I'm trying to say is we learn on things when we grow up. I'm 50 years old now, okay? Yeah. And I've learned a few things as you grow a little bit older. You start to gather a lot of knowledge and you start to understand things aren't as clear as they are. And some people go through this world and say, hey, I haven't stepped on a piece of glass. I have never broken my arm. So they, or I've never been in a car accident. So they don't have that experience of that tragedy that's happened. And what I'm trying to say to you is, and trust me, you have to understand me here. I have no, it's a Canadian or English saying, no dog in this fight here. All I'm saying is at the age of 24, if you have not had any family, friends, or anyone indirect been involved, how can you interact with other people, let's say from Armenia, your age, and say, hey, yeah, it's too bad that happened, or it's too bad that you've been displaced. People are not gonna. You got to understand.
Yeah, I understand. I totally understand, but
so don't think of it as the word.
Armenians actually understand our pain too.
Right, but try not to use the word hate there, because it's something that I think that it's such an easy word to throw out. Oh, they hate us, or we hate them, or we hate this and that. It's all I'm trying to say is there's certain nations and certain countries that and certain nationalities that have never been affected, and this could have got a lot worse, my friend, and it could have really impacted on the other side here. And that's what I'm saying is, are you an open-minded enough person to understand that? Can you feel the other country's pain here?
I mean, sometimes I do. But there was one instance that I lost that. What was that word? Empathy, because when Pashinyan signed a deal, 2 minutes after the Facebook post, I heard an explosion in the sky, and that was a ballistic missile called Iskandar that was fired from Armenia to Azerbaijan, to my city. At the time, so these people are crazy. I wouldn't imagine how would I feel if that hit my neighborhood. 2 minutes after.
How did it feel? How did it feel hearing it and hearing it land? How did that feel?
Well, at the time I didn't know that was an ICBM or.
Okay.
It was an ICBM. It was just a ballistic missile. So I checked the Facebook. Everyone was talking about that. Did you hear the explosion? Did you hear any sound? So everyone was talking about it. I saw it's just a little noise that it was let's say something rolled down from a construction site or whatever. Maybe it was an accident. But no, it was heard by everyone in the city. So at the time I was that was really crazy to see them actually firing missile to Baku. And at the time, I felt that empathy, and when Ganja was strike and Barda strike, because it was very far away from really conflict zone, but I knew Azerbaijan was shelling Khan Chendal, Stepanakert, or using rockets or etc. I knew there were people who were hurt, and I thought to myself, Azerbaijan should stop this. But when I see the Armenian side, I lost that feeling. I've lost that feeling of empathy because they do this thing to us, so why should I feel sorry about them? But that was just a moment of, let's say, that was a momentary feeling. Afterwards, I know there were people who were displaced, who were killed, and from both sides, and it's not really a good thing. It hurts people.
So, do you want to add to that?
Well, I mean, like I said before we brought you on, I did my best to show the facts that were going on the Armenian side, on the Artsakh side of the contact line. There needs to be independent journalists on every side of every war, so the world can see what's happening, because there are two sides to every instance.
Yeah,
but
that's true.
yeah, and I mean, but I could just harp on the one side that I was on what I saw, watching Aliyev, the president of Azerbaijan, saying, we do not hit civilians with cluster bombs. We do not use banned munitions. And I mean, and on a daily basis when I was there, I can actually even show right now. When he's saying they don't use banned cluster bomb munitions, I can show you these, not sure how well.
Yeah,
these,
I saw them.
Yeah, these were what were inside the many of the cluster bombs that were dropped across the city of Stepanakert and many other regions around Artsakh, and killed many civilians and soldiers. And I can't say enough how much the drone warfare played such a huge part in this war. I mean, it was. I've been in other wars before, but it was just a totally different kind of situation with these drones flying overhead, coming from any direction at any given target. It was, but that's kind of getting off the point, I guess. But
and I just want to say, I really admire your courage coming onto this panel. I really do.
Sure.
And I wanted to say I really appreciate it, even though there are differences. And I wish the bloody world would have more shows like this and sit down and talk about differences instead of tearing families, tearing nations, tearing sections of this world apart into pieces, and then having to have, this is, you want to know how crazy this is? You've got a guy from America who has to go out and leave his wife and kids and self-fund to give a country a voice. That's Patrick. Doesn't that boggle your mind? Where the hell is the media today to try to be fair and balanced? It does not exist. And that is one thing that bothers me very much, because there are nations that don't have that voice. Can I ask, what was the voice from Azerbaijan? What news outlets that you trusted?
There are certain news outlets that we can partly trust. One is, for example, Radio Free Europe, or Azalik Radio in Azerbaijan, and Meydan TV, which was very, let's say, neutral. And people were angry about that. Why are they staying neutral in this war and presenting news from Armenian, like, let's say, something positive about Armenia in Azerbaijani media, and calling them traitor? But they had to stay neutral in this war because they are recognized by other, let's say, media outlets as independent and neutral news organization. So I wasn't only reading from Azerbaijan news, but from other sources as well. Let's say from Twitter, Facebook, or whatever. Like, I was checking what Armenians were saying from Telegram channels, or there was like Armenian channel called 301 AD. I think that's the year when Armenia adopted Christianity, and there was a channel named that. I was checking Armenian news, what they say about them. I was checking like their videos posting Azerbaijan casualties and comparing them to other side of Armenian casualties and try to understand which one has the upper hand.
So you kind of use various, and kudos to you for doing that. But you tried to use various media outlets to form your own opinion. Is that correct?
Yes, that's true.
Okay, so I just want to give you a bit of background on Radio Free Europe. Are you familiar with its history and its past?
I'm not really. But
can I enlighten you? Can I enlighten you a little bit?
Yeah, sure.
All right. So Radio Free Europe was also called Radio Free Europe or Radio Liberty. It started broadcasting and was created by the United States government in the 1950s to provide information and political commentary to people of the communist Eastern Europe and Soviet Union. Radio Free Europe is credited with having contributed significantly to the demise of the communist regimes throughout Eastern Europe. At one point, it was funded by the Central Intelligence Agency of the United States of America.
That's quite interesting.
So I just want to say to you that try to find people, if you can, like Patrick in Azerbaijan, to tell a story. People will listen. If you have people that in university that are journalists or whatever, get them to start their own channel, get their voice out there so we can hear. Because when we start to hear big names, BBC, CBC, Fox, all this kind of stuff, we know what engines are behind these, and we know what they've done in the last week as well. So I just want you, because you seem like a smart guy, that try to if you're coming on a show, you're pretty smart for doing that, and I think that you can influence after being on tonight's show maybe some local journalists that can maybe tell us a story or upload some videos from Azerbaijan. I'd like to see them. I think the panel would be
interesting, but the problem is there aren't many English speaking people in the country.
Doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be English. Patrick doesn't speak Russian, but he gets somebody to help him with the subtitles. So trust me, there's an audience there for you. You guys want to add something to that?
There should be some, crowdfunding at the level of Patrick requires a little bit work. I mean, not little bit, but out of time and effort.
But if it's your country at stake, I'm sure you can find somebody to do it. Not you. I'm just saying. I'm sure there's somebody in that country that wants to get the voice out.
There are few people who does that actually. I mean, not on YouTube, but on social media.
Could you do us a favor? Maybe if you can find some, send them to either Patrick so that we can watch their channels as well.
Yeah, sure, but not YouTube channel, but his website, blog, and Twitter profile. There's one person I know that translates articles about history of Azerbaijan, about the conflict, etc. And he's really a pretty neutral guy. And sometimes he is even branded as pro-Armenian in here.
Can you see the questions I'm putting up on the screen now? So I'm going to put this up for the panel, and when the questions come up on the panel,
I see it.
So whoever wants to answer these questions, just put up your hand. So this is the first question: is there freedom of press in Azerbaijan?
Well, if you'd like to answer who you ask. If you have access to internet, if you have access to all websites, I will say there's freedom of press in Azerbaijan because everybody knows what's happening inside the country. If there's a, let's say, protest, if there's something happening inside the government, if people know about it, there's some type of freedom of press in Azerbaijan because it's not totally censored. But since all the television channels owned by the state media, you could say there's no freedom of television in Azerbaijan. That would be true. You could say there's no freedom of newspapers. That would be true. But since there's a freedom of internet and everybody have access to internet, I would say there's a freedom of press or freedom of information in Azerbaijan.
Now, is that using social media networks, or are you just saying somebody going up and posting something on Reddit? Because if you were a conservative in the United States last week, they would pretty much disagree with you on that point, where they would say, "Hey, we can ignore the news companies, but we got Facebook and we got YouTube." No, you don't. So what if I took away YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and all the other colorful little social networks? Where would your voice be?
There wouldn't be any platform to.
Exactly.
Yes.
So
that's true.
that's
But
what
I
I'm
still
saying.
use VPNs and etc.
Another question up here. Anyone on the panel? What type of propaganda do they get in Azerbaijan?
What type of propaganda does it get in
That could be
Azerbaijan?
anybody can answer this.
That's an interesting question. But for example, it can be in school. It depends. Like in school system, they really teach us what happened back in the war and back in 90s, what happens, or who caused that, etc., etc., etc. You could say there's some sort of propaganda, and I will agree. Like they will show us about Khojaly massacre and tell us Armenians are bad people. But that will be a form of propaganda. But I will then argue, like you can't be politically correct when you are on the losing side of the war, and if you want to get back that territory. Azerbaijan or this region in general isn't really a politically correct nation. Even for example, in Chechnya, you can't be a gay person because they will execute you. You understand the mentality. Not even Armenia is a politically correct country because
Now-
they teach bad thing about us and, for example, Turkey as well.
You're basing that now. This is where it gets interesting, and I'm really happy we have you on the show tonight. So I just want to say that again. When you're starting to hear stuff coming out of Chechnya, and I know the point that you're talking about, but where do you base that information on?
Based on Russian media or international media.
Okay.
Or, for example, Ramzan Kadyrov's word, he says there's no gay person in Chechnya.
Right. Now, I might open a bit of can of worms here for myself, but actually, I'm not gonna go down that road tonight. No way, no way, because you got to understand that sometimes, and that's a good example that you gave there, but there might be other examples. I'll give you an example from my own country. I'm going to try to pull my mom into this program so that she can watch it. But let me ask you something.
Sure.
Do you think Canada's a free country?
Well, I don't. It depends who you ask. For example, if you ask
I'm asking you.
If you ask a left-leaning person, she will say Canada is a very free country. But if you ask a right-wing person, he or she will say like they suppress our freedom. So freedom only for what I see from here that is free country if you agree with them. So not every country is actually a free country. They actually favors the political opinions they prefer, not the other side.
Okay, and what freedoms do you think that we don't have in Canada?
For example, you don't have freedom to be politically incorrect.
Expand on that if you can. Well, I changed my battery in my camera.
What I see is that if you raise a conservative opinion in Canada, you can be heard. People can try to silence. Like for example, Donald Trump. He tweeted something and it was suspended from Twitter and from Facebook, from all social media. Is for me, Canada is just this big tech forming its own country.
Okay, so you're saying that we're basically yeah, my color's a bit weird here. Don't worry, I'll get my new camera going here. But you're basically saying that we're following the Americans and stifling our voice. That's interesting because I think you're right on most of these points. I probably would not have agreed with you with every detail until what I've seen in the last week. But not only is it, my examples about the freedom of speeches, but when you start seeing companies like Parler being absolutely knocked out overnight, that was $1 billion business. and completely shut down by Amazon, shut down by Apple, shut down by Google,
Everyone.
and got smoked. So, can you imagine that happening in your country? And all that voice gets taken away from you. So, these are things that I really think that some of the younger generation is not aware of, that they've led us down this path to use all these networks saying that we can be open voiced about it. But you see how fast it can be taken away, right?
Yeah, I see that. Like, it was instant, almost.
Patrick, you got some questions?
Well, I'd like to kind of see a bit of the difference in opinions on like the situation of the war. We talked about a little bit of the propaganda, and from what I understand, a lot as far as the propaganda goes, a lot of the people in Azerbaijan are told and raised thinking that Nagorno-Karabakh or Artsakh, or particularly the word Artsakh, isn't a reality. Because Nagorno-Karabakh and the surrounding regions, they're told that is historic Azerbaijan land, and Armenians shouldn't be there. That's what. Am I correct?
Well, not really. There's no things that Armenians shouldn't be there. There's no things that, like President himself said, the people living in Nagorno-Karabakh, Armenians, are our citizens. That's right. He repeatedly have said that. Like, you can laugh to that, like, say it's only a way to please people. But from the ongoing talks, what I see is that maybe in future they will be given Azerbaijan passports or whatever. Because, for example, there was one Twitter post I saw that Azer soldiers have found Armenian passport, but it was actually written in Azerbaijani. So people there who was Armenian people there actually holding their Azerbaijan documents. No, they didn't throw them away.
Well, I mean, you can say that the president said that, but we can look at how many videos showing Azerbaijan soldiers torturing the civilians in Nagorno-Karabakh and beheading the soldiers. And I mean, civilian after civilian has been told by, I mean, there's videos of military soldiers telling them to leave. I mean,
yeah, there was one instance, for example, in
can say that, oh, they're all welcome, but I mean, this goes all the way, goes to the trilateral agreement. Even in the trilateral agreement between Russia, Armenia, and Azerbaijan, it says that refugees can return to their homes.
Yes,
but
that's
in reality, everyone knows that that's not possible. Putin knew it. Everyone else signing the agreement knew that the Armenians could not return to their homes after the land was turned over to Azerbaijan. And any Armenians, from what I've been told and what I saw with my own eyes, any Armenians that get the Azerbaijan passports and welcomed in, that seems to be done strictly for propaganda, because there might be a handful of those, but there's hundreds of other instances where the Armenians had to leave this territory.
And I just want to tell everybody on the panel, when we're getting into this conversation and it starts to get a little bit heated and whatever, it's not a personal attack on anybody on this panel. I think it's a very healthy debate, and I think it's very, it's good from everybody's standpoint that we try to ask these questions. We try to get it out in the open because we want to know the answers. We want you to know what this side feels. We want you to know what that side feels. So, all the guests that are on this panel at any time, jump into the conversation. If you got something to say, fire away. Maybe we can give your other guest a couple minutes here, Patrick. If you'd like to say something, please do. Please do.
Yeah, I did actually just want to bring up a point or two. One being that the president of Azerbaijan has actually said that he looks forward to. I mean, he's notorious with his tweets, but he's made statements such as he can't wait to wash his feet in Sevan and see the Azerbaijani flag in Yerevan, and he's not alone. A lot of government officials have pushed this thesis that there's no that there is no historical Armenia. It is the Yerevan Khanate, which in reality is just something that for a time when the Persian Empire Persian Empire controlled Armenia, there was something established called the Yerevan Khanate. But of course, that territory has centuries of kingdoms and principalities that have been Armenia long before Turkic peoples came to this part of the world. That's just a point that I think needs to be said, because I'm sure educated people in Azerbaijan are aware, but we have seen this narrative not just throughout the war, but many years prior, because obviously this was an ongoing conflict, albeit in a status of ceasefire since '94. But these narratives have been out there widely enough that it means that it's either being taught in schools or just broadly disseminated, spread in Azerbaijan.
I was just looking at one of the president of Azerbaijan's tweet. He said, "No foreign national or international organization except for the Red Cross can visit Karabakh without our permission."
That's also been the case for years, even prior to the war. And anyone who comes to visit here gets blacklisted, right?
I'm going to bring another person onto the program. He goes by the handle Game Night, and Sam, I'm going to answer this for you in a moment. Actually, going to bring Game Night on, and while he comes on, I'm going to answer this because this one is probably targeted towards me. Game Night, are you there?
Yes.
Welcome aboard. Okay, I'm just going to answer this question. Canada is a free country, yes. Okay, I'll just tell you some of the crazy laws that have been passed in my country in the last year here. One of them is called Bill C-16. It's a bill that was passed in our parliament last year that said that if we're in a managerial role or any role of let's say importance, we'll say, just for argument's sake, or government, or let's say you're a manager of a hotel, or you're a manager of the DMV or something like that. Basically, what they're asking is that we need to use the proper pronouns for individuals. And if we don't use the proper pronouns, like he, she, we, they, non-binary, binary, we can be criminally charged for that. So calling us a free country when our rights that we have to now use a certain alphabet, or if somebody wants to say that they're a cat and we don't say they're a cat and we address them as a man, we can be charged if we don't do that. So free country, I don't think so. That's just one of the more bizarre examples to float to this panel tonight. Game Night, fire away. I'm going to...
Alex, can I interrupt 1 second?
Yeah.
We just want to say thanks to Akan. He's informed me he's got a head out.
Okay. Is he going to come back to say goodbye?
No. Yeah, he's here.
Goodbye, guys.
Are you leaving us? Why are you leaving us? Why are you leaving us? You can't leave us.
Yeah, I can.
5 more minutes?
I've
You got
been here
5
for
more
a long
minutes?
time.
5 more minutes.
All right.
There we
Can
go. All right, I'm convincing. Perfect. Okay, I've got game night on the panel, and I'm bringing Jason in as well. Okay, so here we go. Jason, can you hear us? Okay.
Oh, Jason,
Yeah.
hey.
Okay, so fire away. Game night, it goes to you, and after you're done game night, it goes over to Jason. Okay.
Of course.
Go ahead.
I wanted to bring up a point of let's not forget that we're all human beings, and some of us are civilians or humanitarian workers or just normal people. And the more and more that we get to talk and understand each other, the more and more we get to learn about what's going on in the world. And once we forget that, then we're just as bad as who we think are certain people. Understanding is just kind of the biggest thing. I know that sounds very free love and very very odd to hear, but I'm more meaning in a way of once you understand who you are told is an enemy, most of the time you don't think that they're an enemy. They're just another human being trying to go through a different time.
Yeah, I mean, everybody, has their own points of view, and they are led by their environments. And unfortunately, the environments and the cultures breed people to hate each other in a lot of instances.
May I just chime in
That's
on that?
yeah, of course.
So one of the issues that we've dealt with here in Armenia is that there have been many NGOs, many organizations that have preached about preparing populations for peace and etc. And what I've heard for the most part, both in the education system that I worked in, as well as the time I spent with military folks and people in the Veterans Union, for example, etc. It's been a repetition of the same line, which is that we want peace, but we are prepared. We must be prepared and we must be ready for battle. And that is something that comes from a place of understanding history where the Armenian people have been massacred for centuries, and at a certain point have been massacred by Turkic invaders and later occupiers, and there have been genuine attempts at peace and collaboration as well, even by, for example, the communist Armenians who, of course, were internationalists and did want to did have the common vision, and the in Baku, those communist leaders were all killed, and the Armenians there were massacred, and again in Shushi in 1920. So Armenian educators, as well as anyone involved in the military, has just been conscious of that fact and emphasized the fact that Armenians simply need to be strong and not particularly preaching hate. And I think Patrick mentioned that, and many independent journalists pointed out, especially on Twitter, the fact that they attempted to approach the situation as fair and balanced as possible, and just through the evidence that they observed, saw that there was a disproportionate amount of beheadings and other kind of horrific acts against both soldiers and civilians on the side of the Azerbaijani military, and not to say just the Azerbaijani military, because they also invited Turkey's military, and Turkey brought in a large number of Turkic and Arab militants from Syria, and that's the term that's used anyway, militants, but they are Daesh, they are terrorists, they are members of various terrorist factions that had been committing acts of terror in those areas, and were brought to do the same here in Artsakh. And that was something that was pointed out by journalists that during the conflict. And to emphasize a point that I think Alex tries to emphasize, the mainstream media did not cover that. It was on Twitter mainly, and Telegram channels, the actual videos themselves and the reports around them, and I'm sure on some YouTube channels, but it was primarily independent journalists that were pointing these things out. And if the mainstream media ever covered it in any capacity, it was watered down and a lot of spin attached to it, so as to not
pick a side,
the
almost.
and not alarm the international community, or to not have the international community put in a position where their citizenry would say, why are we allowing this?
I'll let you continue on to that. We're going to say goodbye to the young man who was brave enough to come on the program today. Just wanted you can just say goodbye to our audience, and that's greatly appreciated for you dropping into the show tonight.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you very much for coming. And maybe you've got some last words as well. It'd be great to hear your thoughts.
Well, not really. I don't want to extend this conversation because I'm really in a hurry. So goodbye.
All
right. Well, thanks for dropping in. We're going to go on to Jason now. Okay. Thank you very much, and take care. Okay. Jason, welcome to the program. Tell us what's in your mind tonight or this afternoon. What are you thinking? Tell us.
Well, I'm kind of pleasantly blown away right now. Patrick had mentioned before that he has been talking to someone from the other side who is capable of talking and having discussion about things, and that was a great surprise. Especially with the way that, not saying the Azeri people, but the way that the Azeri government handles media and control of information. It's nice to have someone we can talk to, right? What's been kind of on my mind lately is, from my understanding, there was originally a deal that was presented forth between Putin, Pashinyan, Aliyev, and Erdogan. It had something to do with both sides making land concessions in a way that both sides can agree on, in a manner that will restore the border between Artsakh and Armenia. It would basically just be, okay, well, we'll give up some of the land over there if you guys agree that this land right here between Artsakh and Armenia is Artsakh. And from what I heard, Premier Putin thought it was a good idea, presented it to Erdogan and Aliyev, and their response was that if Pashinyan agrees, they will agree. When Pashinyan was presented with it, he just immediately shot it down and didn't even like notify his own people or anything. And then later on, a couple months later or something, we get this huge capitulation that's just a massive sellout, right? The Armenian folks that I know personally have stated the words, "He sold our children and our land." That's pretty heavy.
It is. Yeah, and can I add to that? Like, is this really one man's decision, though? Is he the only one?
That's the amazing thing, is I don't think it ever really is one man's decision, yet he took it upon himself to just immediately shoot it down and make that decision for all of the Armenian people and for all of Artsakh. He just immediately shot down, and from what I've come to understand, during Soviet times, when the whole border changed, at first the USSR wasn't stepping in, right, until they absolutely had to, once things got way bloody, way violent. Mm-hmm. And then the decision was kind of a screw Artsakh, which obviously did not sit so well with many people. Mm-hmm. So the whole thing was that, like, this might be a way to finally undo that horrible decision that led to this continuance of anger and strife and war. And I think it sounds like a reasonable deal if all parties involved could. But then again, I'm in California. I'm a California independence movement leader. I'm not an Artsakh independence leader, right?
That's you're a brave man too, though. And this time, I'm telling you.
Well, and it should be noted, we are 100% legal and peaceful means. Always clear on that. Articles of self-determination. Never going to catch us storming the Capitol. Never.
No, I understand that. And I think most people have good intentions. But, my concern here is much deeper than just this conflict that's gone on in this area here. And I think you heard this on the last show is, we got quite a big role change coming up here in about 7 or 8 days here. We're switching a leader of one of the biggest countries in the world and one of the most powerful countries in the world as well. And how is this going to change the genetics of this world? You got to remember, love them or hate them or whatever. But last 4 years for the U.S. has been pretty. And game night, you can correct me if I'm wrong here. Maybe I'm wrong, but the last 4 years has been pretty good for, I would say, not so much conflict for the American military. Am I right or wrong on that?
No, that's pretty.
It depends on what you view as military action, because
I knew you'd say that.
Because there's been a lot of soldiers that have been rotated, but not necessarily taken away, because there's still troops in every single country since the last 20 administrations. Ever since 9/11, we haven't left the same countries that we invaded. There's still troops there. There might be less, but there's still a lot.
Yeah,
so,
the
but
United
I mean, what
States
do
has
these
an
people?
active military presence in about 2/3 of the world's countries.
Yeah, it was 8. I think it was game night. Was it 80? Did we agree on 80 last time we had our chat?
If it's military, probably 80%, but if it's everything, it's 100%. If it's spying and if it's propaganda and the belief and
you know what? I mean, let's talk about the word spying for a minute here, because everybody gets freaked out about this word spying. I don't think that's a bad idea if each country does it to kind of keep an eye on each country, if you know what I'm saying. It's kind of like, you know what? I'm going to send my Uncle Bob in to kind of stay at your house for the weekend to make sure you don't have a party. As long as, you know, there's nothing nefarious going on there. I think most countries do it anyway. I know the Canadians do it. In fact, guys, you getting ready for this one here? Our lead guy, and you guys fact check me on this. You want our lead guy that was running our intelligence for the Royal Canadian Mounted Police was arrested last October for sharing information with the port's motorcycle gangs in Mexico. He's in jail. He was our number one guy. The number one guy. I think his name is Ortiz is his last name, but he's going away for 40 years. So got to remember, I mean, some of this information is not necessarily safe. And last thing I want to ask the panel, my beloved BlackBerry is still kind of alive, and I still use BBM. You know, 99% of the audience isn't going to understand what the hell that means, but I use it because I use it because I like secure communication. But as you know, 2 days ago, WhatsApp said that they're now going to be turning over all their information to Facebook. On this panel and in the chat group, what is the best, I guess, messenger app to use at this time?
I like Discord.
I like Telegram.
Okay. Telegram for you, Patrick. Go, Jason.
I like Discord.
Discord. Game night.
I use Signal.
Signal. Is that the?
It's fully encrypted. It's a fully encrypted messaging app back and forth. You have independent keys when you message someone. So if I, let's say, message Jason, he would have a key and I would have a key, and we would independently encrypt each other's data to be sent to each other so that no one can see what we sent or know what was in it.
Do you guys want, besides BlackBerry? You ready for it? What would one thing that the Americans or Canadians, or we'll call them the Five Eyes, they could probably get the keys to WhatsApp pretty easy, right? Are we all in agreement to that?
Matters how good
probably.
your encryption is.
Yeah. I use WeChat.
Ooh, on your Wii.
WeChat, the Chinese application for communication.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that one.
Uh-huh.
There's another one that's I think it might be the same people. It's MeWe. And
MeWe.
It's basically like the new Facebook for it. And you know, when Facebook started censoring around some stuff like 4 years ago, you know, there was kind of an anti-Bernie Sanders thing going on over there.
What are they using in Armenia?
I think people use WhatsApp for the most part in this part of the world.
Okay.
But
are you on Telegram?
Who are experts in this type of thing?
Oh,
I am
yes.
on Telegram,
Tell
sure. But I have Signal now. But I hear Signal and Discord are the best ones. But
Signal
maybe
and Discord.
you and I can BBM, because you're the only other person I know who owns a BlackBerry.
And there's a reason for it, guys. Not a bad reason. It's just that as Canadians, when we grew up, it was banged into our heads about, you know, secure emails, secure this, and it's part of our DNA. It just is. And you know, when we grew up, it's kind of like, okay, my first smartphone was a BlackBerry. And I held out, and I still hold out, guys. I still got a keyboard, and of course, I've got a normal tablet phone. But this is actually this is a Chinese. This is a Huawei phone with a Chinese SIM card into it. Because I don't know if you guys are aware, I do most of my vlogs in China. So, but it's pretty much, this phone is pretty much cut off from the rest of the world. I mean, so, but yeah, you got BlackBerry. I love that. Perfect. I'm going to send my PIN over to you. Because on BlackBerry, you don't have to give your phone number away. It's great. It's great. Game night, I got you on here. I had a couple questions for you. My mother is deeply concerned about this, and I know we might deviate a little bit away of this, and I don't think it's a bad thing. I think we kind of got into this conversation, but with this global pandemic going on and this vaccination, you and I talked about, let's get the military in to try to vaccinate all these people. And the way you explained it to me, I explained it to my mother that it's, states are different than federal, and she understood that. But there's a drug that's been on the market for 40 years called, let me just pull it up here. And it was brought up, and I want you guys, if you can tonight, ivermectin. It's a drug that was invented. It's called ivermectin. It's ivermectin. And I'm not a doctor. I'm not a physician. I'm not. There's the disclaimer there. I'm not recommending this. But they did some clinical trials, and this drug has been out for 30 or 40 years, guys. And I am not a conspiracy theorist guy. Ask Patrick. I am the first guy to, forget it unless I see something behind it. I'm not interested in it. But I started this, research this drug. And if any of the panel knows what I'm talking about, join in. So this drug has been around, I think, 30 or 40 years. It's to help with parasites, some really nasty things too, scabies, all this kind of whatever stuff. But what it does is they found out that they did a big trial, clinical trial. They're all over the internet, and they tried it on medical professionals in certain parts of the world that were treating COVID patients. And out of the 320 that they gave it to, none of them got COVID. And of the other ones that they didn't got COVID at the same hospitals. And they were doing all these trials. So a proven doctor, and you can watch it on YouTube, just put ivermectin Senate. This doctor went up in front of the Senate and he's saying, what the hell are you guys doing? This is not a vaccine. But if people take 5 dosage, I think it's $1 for 5 pills. That's because it's been on the market for 40 years. Okay, no one cared about it. Anyway, you take it and it builds up your antibodies to fight the COVID. It's proven. I'm not kidding about this. So I go on YouTube today and I see this really smart female doctor come on. She says, "Oh," and she's not a YouTuber. Okay, she goes, "I can't believe I have to make this video again." She says, "I don't know why YouTube took it down, but they took my video down, and I'm just trying to give advice on this drug that can save people's lives." Then I'm thinking, well, okay. So I said to my mom, go to the doctor, because my mom's 77. So she's the first lady that gets the vaccine in February. And her husband is not 75. He's younger. So he has to wait until another 4 months after that. It's just the way it goes. So I said, Mom, get him to ask about this, ivermectin drug. Well, they did. They went to the doctor. And you know what the doctor told him? It's been taken off the prescription list in Canada. You can't get it.
Mm.
Wow.
Fast forward to Africa, who's been handing this out to millions of its populations, even before COVID, way before COVID, and they were doing well. Jason, you're muted, just so I can't hear you if you're saying something there. I see you talking, but
Yes.
But in certain parts of Africa, they were doing really well during this pandemic. Well, a guy just went to Dubai, said, shit, I'm going to go back and bring $6,500 of this drug back from Dubai. What happened to him at the airport? Got arrested. Confiscated all of the ivermectin. Being charged for an over-the-counter drug. Guys, I am dead serious. But when you watch this stuff online, it just starts to get my mind going. Maybe this just isn't media. Maybe this is big pharma. Somebody want to add something to this?
There's two big things that you touched on, and that's almost forced vaccination and how drugs are interpreted in different countries. And I think the forced vaccination, it's going to be up to the person, regardless if it's forced or not, in the United States specifically. Because, I mean, I learned even from being in the Army, you don't trust every drug they give you. You got to take it, but some of those drugs, you don't really know what's in them. And even though that these can be clinically proven, all this medical paperwork done, you could have years. And I still know people that are anti-vaccination because of these situations.
I agree with you on that, but what if I told you you didn't have to take a vaccine and you could try this drug that is being sworn by American doctors, physicians that have gone out and screamed in front of Congress saying this bloody thing works. It's only $1 for 5 pills. It works. It's been working in Africa, and they take it off the shelves and you can't get it anymore. I would trust something that's been on the shelves for 40 years and might give me a shot of not getting it. You know what I'm getting at? Like,
yeah. And there's a very big discrepancy between big pharma and getting the medication. Because in the United States, you know how cheap insulin is to make here? This is the biggest one. Insulin is pennies to make a vial of it in the United States. And they actually, a couple pharmaceutical companies just got sued because they were selling it for $200 per vial. And that's the same thing that's going to happen with any proven miracle drug. Not saying that miracle as in bad, but any sort of drug that's going to be used for actual use will either be taken off the market and a new one will be brought up that's less effective. Because big pharma isn't out for helping people. It's about money. And if they can give you a product that won't cure you but make you keep taking it, they're going to do that.
I mean,
I totally agree with that.
That might be an American thing, but that shit ain't gonna roll in a few of the countries I'm living in.
Of course, no, that's the United States view. That's what happens in the United States.
How the hell can that even be possible?
People have money. Whoever.
Yeah, and the people who have the money go and bring that money to the legislators. And then the legislators decide to take that money, put it into their pockets and their bank accounts, and do whatever the guy that just handed them that big wad of cash said to do, which is usually don't allow this certain piece of thing to the floor so that we won't get sanctioned, or, you know, no one will propose this legislation that mandates that we don't mark up our life-saving medications more than a certain percentage. You know, anything to stop that from happening. And they'll continue to throw millions and millions, hundreds of millions of dollars while people are literally starving and freezing to death on the streets in America. There are people throwing hundreds of millions of dollars at lawmakers trying to make sure that those who have not continue to have not,
and
so that they can just continue to make more obscene amounts of money.
And that's exactly what's happened in the United States. Something that a lot of people forget is that lobbying used to be illegal. Lobbying a group of people to pass a vote, it's not illegal anymore. There was a law that got passed by, I'm going to say, lobbyists that got to allow that to not be illegal. I don't know how that is in other countries, but in the United States, it's legal now to pay off people to give you tax cuts, to give you laws to allow you to do certain things. That's legal in the United States.
You know, guys, I mean, I'm just absolutely flabbergasted on what I've seen go on in the. I mean, I've been looking at the news the last couple of days here, various news outlets. And I would have expected a bigger, a bigger demonstration, we'll call it, with polite words, than what's going on. Or is a bigger demonstration coming?
Well, I've been seeing, because I know people on all sides of the spectrum. I'm not even a Democrat. I'm not a Republican or a Democrat, as I call them, Demopublicans and Republicrats. They're both the same thing to me.
Before you go on with your point, if somebody built something 20 miles out of the water and said it was an independent nation and would sell it to you for $1, you'd buy it, wouldn't you?
No.
No,
I would. Mainly because that land would more than likely have little to no economic value.
But I'm just saying, you could form your own country on it.
Well, yeah, but California is already its own nation state. We just got to pursue and claim our self-determination, our right to self-governance.
This question's for the panel. But anybody want to take this question?
I think that's a bit of a stretch. I mean, like you, Alex, I'm not one this big on the conspiracy theories and whatnot, but I mean, there's no way this was, a planned out thing. I mean, maybe other people have different opinions, but I'm not too big into it was on purpose or, or it's fake or anything. I mean, my personal opinion on COVID is that it's gonna run its course. I mean, these vaccines, I'm not going to take a vaccine because it's too soon. Maybe after a year or two, I'll take one. But I mean, this thing's already starting to mutate. The vaccines, in my opinion, are happening too fast. But the whole idea of people saying this is, it's fake or whatnot, I don't believe that's technically the case. But actually, I'm gonna have to end it on this one because I got to get back to the family. But I want to thank you guys for being on this week. And
yep, Patrick, you just tell us when you want to do it again, and we'll line it up. And game night, and Jason, you guys are welcome any time. And we just want to say a big thank you to the audience, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button, everybody. And if you want to come and see some pretty cool stuff on China that you haven't seen anywhere else, I'm not haven't been demonetized yet, but I'm working on it. And just go over to Reporterfy Media. You can see me on YouTube. It's in the description below.
Great stuff over there.
I appreciate that, and thank you for the guests tonight. And I will be adding you to BlackBerry. And Jason, find out my email from somebody here and drop me an email. You're an interesting guy as well. As game night, thank you. I've got your email the other day, and I appreciate that. And
Patrick,
go ahead, Jason. One last thought.
If you could send me his email on Facebook Messenger, if you could do that, that would.
Yeah. Okay, terrific. Great. Yeah, for sure. And
any last point? Anybody else want to say something before we head out the door? We're all good.
Just want to again say thanks, everybody. Thanks, Khachig, and thanks, Alex. Thank you
very much.
Yeah, thanks for all the. I think he might have
frozen up.
Yeah. Anyway. But it was probably good timing. But so thanks for everything, everybody. It's been a great show. Just like there, you're back. Thanks, buddy, for coming. And I'm looking.
Thanks very much.
I'm looking forward to seeing you in Yerevan and Artsakh. I'll be back soon. So.
I also, can you all hear me? I just want to say thank you to Patrick and Alex. I appreciate you inviting me onto the show.
What a pleasure. It's always great to talk to open minds. That's fantastic. And thanks to your other friend that you invited on the show. Guys, well, good night, good evening, and good morning, wherever you're watching from. We want to thank you again here for coming onto the show. And Patrick, thanks for lending us your audience tonight, and we look forward to doing it. Just keep an eye on the community tab.
You being the host is such a great help, Alex. I mean, it's really amazing what you bring to it. You've got the energy to keep everybody going on one topic or another, so it's great. And everybody should really go and check out your channel. And I hope we can keep this going. It's really interesting stuff we've got here.
Gentlemen, have yourself a great day and great evening. Thanks, Jason. Game night. Khachig, that's a hard name to pronounce. Wow. And Patrick. All right, guys. Thanks. Take care. Cheers. Right. Bye-bye.
Bye. Say bye-bye. Say bye-bye.